Hello, you're listening to Food Rebels and welcome. This is the podcast that brings you brands, chefs and live on-air tastings. A show that's dedicated to the more rebellious side of the food world where we celebrate the people who have challenged the status quo. We'll be giving you a peek behind the curtains and inside the minds of the people who are shaking up our food industry. You know me, I'm the show host, AJ Sharp, taste expert, food writer, great taste food judge, and of course, business owner. I love meeting new people and tasting new foods. So, sit back as we hear more stories from people in food who dare to be different. Hello and welcome to Food Rebels today. I've got a very special guest on the show. I've got Charlotte Miller, who is on a mission to reimagine chocolate for today's families. She's rewriting the rules of snacking and is the founder of Caroboo, which is swapping out cocoa for carob, and she's building a brand that is taking on the confectionery giants one bar at a time. Welcome to the show, Charlotte.
Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to have you on the show.
And that was such a nice introduction as well. You'd never think that you were an exceptionally polished writer.
It's so lovely. We last caught up at Bread and Jam, didn't we, in the summer, where it was crazy and busy, and you were on the stage somewhere, I think. I was on a stage and we caught each other in the green room, which sounds very cool, in between talks, didn't we?
We did. It was lovely, actually, having a friendly face in the green room, because for me, it can be a bit of an intimidating place. I know there would be lots of kind of famous food faces in there. I didn't feel quite like I should have been there, but it was still amazing to have the experience and then see your lovely face in the green room, and we had a lovely catch up.
We did, and I think you ended up actually looking after someone's baby while they went to pitch to Waitrose or something, didn't you?
I think that actually might pinnacle one of the most stressful moments of my life, actually, knowing that the mum wasn't allowed to hear. It was our friend Eva and Viv from Oak Avenue, and their baby was only 6 months old, and she screamed the entire time I held her. So I was running her around the atrium, trying not to let her mum hear her during the pitch, during to Waitrose or something.
I loved it though. There was just something really wonderful about mums supporting mums and coming together and helping each other and being like, don't worry, sling me the baby, it's absolutely fine, go and pitch to Waitrose. And there was something about it that was like modern women supporting other women, growing businesses. I just loved it. Well, other parents, Steve was there too, but I just loved it. There was something really lovely about it and wholesome.
Yeah, it was so lovely as well, because 3 years prior to that, I had been that person at Bread and Jam carrying my baby in a very sweaty atrium. That's where we first met. And Eva had said to me that I'd inspired her to come with the baby because she knew that, we could do it and she'd have support. So that was just so lovely, round circle sort of moment for me.
I remember that. I remember meeting you and you had a little papoose pouch and a very, very young. How old was she?
I think she was probably only about 12 weeks at the time, or maybe a bit younger. Yeah.
Absolutely tiny. And you did it. You absolutely bossed it. You were at all of the different conference, seminars and talking and just incredible. I think it's the way we are building our companies now, isn't it? Where we are building in the family, because you cannot get away from the family. That is, in times gone by, I think companies were being built in a very different way, and we're building them differently now.
Yeah, thank goodness for that, as well. Because I couldn't do this without being able to include my children in some sort of way. We were just at Vegan Camp Out, one of the biggest vegan festivals, and it's a 5-day event. It's not really a thing I can do without my kids because they've been for 2 years. This year was a whole new level of carnage, but they get to see that interaction with our customers and seeing mum and dad, I guess hustle and really working hard. And then they kind of have definitely taken on that spirit as well, which is a nice byproduct, even though it is definitely not easy at times.
Yeah. And kids do what you do, not what you say. So there'll be a whole load of learning that's going into your kids, as they're going along with you to those kind of things. That is really awesome. I can't wait to see what this generation does.
True, yeah.
So tell us about Caroboo, because that's been built kind of because of your family, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a really unconventional kind of move into food. It wasn't something I never really thought that I would do. I became a mum to my first daughter, Adelaide, and my relationship with food just changed. I think I became hyper aware of what I was feeding her and doing all the government guidelines of no sugar before two, added sugar before two, and just, the baby led weaning. And yeah, I guess just all of a sudden having this really hyper focus on making sure she had goodness. Not that I was as good at doing that for myself. I mean, I never had a terrible diet per se, but I have an incredible sweet tooth. And that's obviously not always been to my benefit either. So I kind of just had this new love of looking at food and trying to nourish her. And then we went on a holiday as a family to Australia. And it is a very chance encounter with the ingredient carob, because Australia grow 1% of the world's carob, the rest grows in Europe. So I do feel like it's one of those moments where I was meant to find it at that sort of time. And I remember picking up this packet and trying a product that was not that dissimilar to ours, but being so intrigued by it and thinking it tastes familiar. But I had no idea what carob was. I just kept the packet and I put it in my notebook. And it kind of played on my mind all holiday that there was something that could be done in the UK for children. And so I brought it back. I bought some tiny tabletop refiners that have granite discs. They're exceptionally noisy. And I kind of reverse engineered a recipe. Mine tasted absolutely disgusting. I'll just put that out there at the beginning. I remember assuming everything would mix together very nicely and beautifully and it would taste like a nice chocolate bar, but it didn't. And so when I came back and I kind of decided to research carob as an ingredient more, it's a pea-like pod, grows on trees in the Mediterranean, and it naturally tastes a bit fruity and chocolatey.
It's a pea,
but it's a pea-like pod. It looks a bit like a broad bean in size, but flat and brown, like very dark brown. And it grows very abundantly across the Mediterranean. Like awesome. If I pointed out a tree to you and you went to Italy or Spain, you would probably then spot them everywhere that you went. And so, yeah, when I researched about carob and the benefits of carob, with the fact that it's got no caffeine or stimulants, things that, quite frankly, I don't think any child needs, because I have three now and they're all bonkers. It's like giving them a shot of caffeine is not necessary at any time.
Agree.
Yeah, I guess
chocolate has a lot, doesn't it? Chocolate has a lot of caffeine.
Well, dark chocolate has more caffeine in it, and theobromine. So theobromine is like another stimulant that's found in cocoa. Both of them in combination will give you that kind of a bit of a pep, wake you up. I can't eat dark chocolate before bed because it will wake me up, because it keep me up, because I'm very intolerant to caffeine since I've had kids. But yeah, I guess after kind of starting this love affair with carob, I just thought it's such a fantastic ingredient to make a chocolate-like product, because it's very sweet as well. We've been able to make a recipe that just doesn't have ridiculous levels of sugar in it, added sugar. And that's kind of the beginnings of Caroboo. But then it changed, because obviously the product that I've sent to you today is very much not aimed at children.
Yeah, I mean, these are beautiful. I love these bars. I mean, obviously orange is my favourite colour, but and I love a bit of orange chocolate, so I'm looking forward to trying that one. But you've sent me here orange, smooth and creamy. They all say that? No, they don't. Raspberry and honeycomb crunch, smooth and creamy mint, coconut and salted caramel.
Yeah. It's definitely one of our best sellers, that one.
Is it? Amazing.
Yeah. When we first launched that one into the office, I think we, as a collective, ate it for about 6 months straight.
Did you?
Almost got sick of it. Yeah, we weren't very good at just keeping all stock for samples for other people only.
That's amazing. I mean, it does look like chocolate. And it smells like chocolate. You would think that's chocolate. Absolutely. It looks like chocolate, smells like chocolate. It's got this beautiful pattern on it, which you won't be able to see here, but it's absolutely beautiful.
And the recipe, I fully made that recipe in my kitchen as well. So these kind of little tiny tabletop refiners that we had, they would run for kind of 12 to 24 hours. Finally, what's the right word here? Just making the particle sizes smaller so that it tastes much smoother, like a chocolate would be.
It's lovely. It's so creamy. It is really sweet, considering it's 45% less sugar. I was thinking it was going to be slightly on the tart side, but it's not at all, is it?
No.
It's sweet. It tastes sweet, like you're having
you want
a treat.
it to be. Yes. Well, that was very much my aim when I was, kind of coming up with the recipes, because I think the UK palate in particular, we have got a sweet tooth as a nation. We have people that like dark chocolate in this country, but the majority like milk chocolate, which is obviously normally 50 to 55% added white sugar. We add around 20% coconut sugar to the recipe, and the rest of the sweetness comes from the carob. But then you also get a bit of good, healthy fiber in there to reduce the spike that you'll get when you normally have a normal chocolate bar.
Oh, do you? So it's fibrous as well. I'm now trying the orange. Salty caramel was delicious. And there's little granules in there, isn't there? Or is it nuts in there? There is definitely like texture.
Yeah, little nuts. We've got hazelnuts in that one.
This one's totally smooth and tastes really creamy. It kind of melts straight away, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really surprising. I think that's one thing that people say when they try the bars. It's so surprising how close in texture and taste to chocolate that it is.
I mean, it's better than like the really, the kind of dairy milks and the quite processed ones. They don't really melt for a while because there's almost a slightly plasticky texture, whereas this melts straight away. And my whole mouth is coated in this lovely chocolate orange flavour.
So we use creamed coconut in the bars, and what that does is it kind of melts at your body temperature. So it gives that quick melt, give that sort of chocolatey experience. But I mean, the thing with brands like Cadbury's now, they've changed their recipe so much and so far away from an actual decent chocolate bar by adding texturizing agents and all sorts of E numbers that frankly should not be in a chocolate bar. But it is still the number one chocolate brand in the UK.
I think it's a nostalgia thing as well. But this is so much more delicious. I would absolutely snack on this. So it's not got caffeine, unlike chocolate, and the sugar is so just take me through that. So it's going to be absorbed by your body differently.
Yeah, so there's a different, when you have sugar in combination with a fat source and fiber, your body doesn't absorb all of that sugar in one big hit. The raspberry one's good. It's like jam, isn't it?
Oh my God, the raspberry one is amazing. It's so raspberry-y.
Yeah, I love that one. We just tweaked that recipe recently, so it's still not entirely out in the wild, that one, because we had other stock we were running down in some of our wholesalers. But yeah, I absolutely love that one. So yes, in combination with fat and fiber, sugar is not as quickly absorbed into the bloodstream, so you have a slower release. So we'd say, it's horrible to use this phrase from COVID, flatten the curve, but that's essentially what it does. We've spoken to, goodness me, 100 or so diabetics that we will meet at food shows and allergy shows and things like this. And it's so many times people will say, I can have this because of the fiber and the fat, because it doesn't spike my blood sugars in the same way. And the science is that when you have fiber in combination with sugar, you won't have so much as of a peak with the sugar absorption. So yeah, it's a bit more of a sustainable afternoon snack.
Yeah, we had Laurie Firmer from Freddie's Farm come on the show, and she was talking about her fruit bars and where they've grated the fruit and they've not pulverized it's not been pureed. And they're the same thing. There's still a lot of fiber attached to the sugar. Yeah. So it just absorbs in a really different way. That's amazing. You wouldn't imagine it, though. I can see my kids nailing these. I know these ones might not be necessarily designed for children, but I can see them happily eating one of these after school and thinking that they've had a really good treat.
Yeah, we did. I went into my son and daughter's school, into the primary school. They did a day where parents could come in and say what they did if they wanted to. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess for me, I do have a job that children be interested in, because it's kind of like being Willy Wonka. So definitely. I went and we had, we gave a bar to every child in the school, and then I came and did the kind of talk during the assembly to the oldest and the younger ones. And it was the funniest thing. After school, I went to pick up my children, completely forgetting that I had given them all a bar, but I wasn't expecting to see the whole playground filled with them. Like every child was walking past me with a Caroboo bar, and I was like, this is so strange.
This is surreal.
It was absolutely, yeah, but it was amazing. And all the children, I mean, still now I'll walk up to the school and they're like, are you that chocolate lady?
Oh, that's amazing, though. I bet your kids were cock a hoop. They must have felt so proud of your,
Yeah.
my mum's the one who came in with all of the chocolate bars.
Yes. I mean, my older one, she's too cool for school, so maybe not so much, but at the time she was. Yeah.
So you've described yourself as pushing back against big food. What does that look like, kind of, in terms of your marketing and how you're approaching telling people about Caroboo?
So I think that's going to change for us because I have to be completely honest. I have been sometimes a bit too apologetic in our marketing, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. The way that the bars are right now, they're actually aimed at an adult market. They're too big, really, for a child to consume in one go. Maybe an older child, but they're 35 grams. It's the same size as kind of a Mars bar, your typical small Cadbury's bar. And so we're in a completely different market than, or servicing a different consumer market than I thought we would be, because at the time of when we launched, we had massive minimum order quantities with our factories, and really the interest that we got from some of the retailers was for something that was an adult size bar. And so I kind of got railroaded into this sort of where we are today. Not in a bad way, because actually I definitely feel like I've done an MBA for the past 5 years learning about the food industry, and I clearly needed to do that before I was in a position to look at the MPD that we've got coming up. But because of that, the bars as they are, I've had to talk to an adult market who have a specific dietary requirement. And it's just been very different. I kind of, in a way, don't feel I've been able to be as authentic to the story of entirely why I started, because for the past 5 years, we've not been selling to specifically to parents. And yeah, I guess that's the long and short of it. There's around 2 million people in the UK that can't actually tolerate cocoa containing products. They can't eat chocolate. It's quite sad, really. And that can be from health related conditions and problems with the heart. A lot of problems actually can with the bladder. So caffeine can exacerbate a lot of problems if you've got bladder related issues. We have customers who have prostate issues actually, and they become lifelong fans of the brand. And so we've ended up in this place where, yeah, I guess the marketing's just different. We're talking about products that really solve a problem for people, and less so, in my opinion, that we're pushing the boundaries of fighting against big food. But the whole reason I started the company was to have something that we could focus much more strongly to children and to families, because I think that's where it's needed the most. And in that lifetime that is coming very soon, we get to, I think, push much harder against the likes of Cadbury's and mainstream chocolate companies, who I think are doing a massive disservice to our children and to families as well. The recipes are getting worse. They're putting more rubbish and numbers in these products. And I think they've paid a lot of lip service to governments in trying to reduce sugar and showing that they're willing and doing things, when actually we haven't seen any major sticking and lasting change. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what needs to change then for you to be able to, I suppose the first question is, what needs to change for you to be able to market this more to families? Are you going to come up with a different pack size, or is there a share a bar? Do you just talk about sharing it? How does that work?
So we have been developing our first children's range, not quite launched yet, but it's in a completely different format. Very appropriate for children in pack size and format. So I'm really, really proud of what we've created behind the scenes so far. And I think then that gives us a different vehicle to go and speak to families in a way that really resonates with them, because we meet parents and they're like, it is too big in its current format for children. It's not something then that they would buy maybe as regularly, because it's not in that right appropriate portion size. And to be honest, I don't think we should be giving them to children when they're 35 grams. There's still too much product there for a young child. And I think where in my mind, the gap has always been for young children. So it was the pain point I had as a parent was my children would get to about the age of 3, 2.5 to 3. And then you go to parties, and even if you've done all the right stuff before, no added sugar and all of this good stuff, all of a sudden you're at parties and it's Cadbury's and it's Haribo, and you're like, it's almost like this inevitable tide that comes into your life, and you can't escape it. either you're so purist and then your children feel potentially a bit left out and you really have to pack those special things every time they go to a party. And I don't have time for that because I'm not that parent. But also, I then have this horrible twinge and guilt, and I'm like, I don't really want you to eat this stuff. I don't want you to be left out. And I think it's at that point where there is a real need for something better. And it's been frustrating to see no change from the industry from even when I first had this idea in my mind. I think it was Nestle, who does Milky Way, Milky Bars. Is that Nestle?
I think that might be Nestle.
Yeah, they had some innovation a few years ago where they had crystallized sugar in an interesting way and it made it taste sweeter, so they could reduce the sugar by 30% in the Milky Bar. And really, that should have been something that was rolled out across all of their products. But there was barely any marketing. Really, you could tell that they didn't have their full weight behind it because it got delisted everywhere. And I think that was a communication problem. And then when we look at Cadbury's, they had a 30% reduced sugar recipe that they introduced again, maybe 3 years ago. And it didn't get widely spread and rolled out. And as a consumer, for me, I believe they could have immediately made all of their children's products 30% lower in sugar. That could have been a hero story, but they didn't. And that's because they don't really care. In my opinion,
they don't want to lose the sales, do they? They risk sales by changing anything. So they never want to change anything. They just keep it consistent, even if it's negative. Which it sounds like this might be.
Yeah, definitely. So I think there's just this really interesting space to shake up for children's confectionery where nobody's really stepped into, particularly in chocolate. It's very hard, in all fairness, with an actual cocoa pod to reduce the sugar, because cocoa is naturally bitter. You really do have to add 50% sugar to make it at the palatable level that most children will enjoy. You know, we have a bit of a workaround with that because we're championing carob because it's a fantastic ingredient and has all those other benefits.
It's amazing. I don't think I'd ever really come across carob before. I think actually there was a moment in my childhood where someone did a allergy test and discovered that my eczema was caused by chocolate, and I was told to eat carob, and I think my mother bought a couple of very old-fashioned dusty carob bars from a health food shop, and it was, let's say, not necessarily a success, but it did not taste anywhere near as good as your bars. I mean, this has gone through a huge revolution. Are there any other carob bars on the market? Are you guys really leading in this space?
Yeah, we are leading in this space. So there was a brand that was in the market, but they would have fallen much more under a purist health food only staple. So back in the 80s, and we meet people all the time at shows. This always makes me laugh. We get people come up to the stand and they're like, ooh, carob. Yeah, my mum used to give me this in the 80s and early 90s, and oh God, it was awful. And I'm like, I completely get it, because it's nostalgic for some people in a really lovely way. And in other ways, they have been entirely traumatized as a child being told that was chocolate. And the amount of people that are brave enough, to be honest, to come back and try it and then are completely converted and like, oh my goodness, that's not how I remember it to be at all. But yeah, there definitely was a wave back in the 80s of not very good carob, not made in the same way that we do. Ours is made in a really state-of-the-art chocolate factory, so you can get those particles super tiny, and that's what makes it smooth. So yes, we are definitely leading the revolution on carob in the UK, particularly from a consumer-facing point of view as a brand. There are other kind of food ingredient companies coming into the market that are using it for coatings and things like that on products, on chocolate bars and things like that.
It's amazing. So this must have been quite a tough journey for you, because you're creating a niche and creating an entire product range. You can't copy anybody else, and you're having to launch it into a space that doesn't necessarily know what it is. So this must have been quite a tough business journey for you over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's definitely pushed me to my limits, I must admit. I mean, I am an eternal optimist, so I always have an attitude of, yeah, I can probably do that. And I think a lot of that has stood me in good stead to just keep getting up and have the tenacity to take all of the hits on the chin. There have been many times when I've been crying in the corner of my dining room office thinking, what am I doing here? When we first launched, I understood where we needed to be. So independent health food stores have been the backbone of building my company, because that was a space where people knew what Carob was and not in a negative light. So we launched actually whilst there were still shutdowns during COVID, but we had a kind of a feet on the street sales team. They were called Natural Trade Brokers, amazing team to work with. And they took our bars out across the UK, and they were physically able to go into stores, get the store owners to try it, and then get us listed. I think we got very quickly up to about 300 stores within 2 months or something. It was mad. But what I did not understand at all, because I had no experience at that time, was I had no way of looking after 200 accounts by myself. It was just ridiculous. And then I had to learn that lesson. I then lost tons of customers and had a painful regrowing phase again. We've had also, I've never manufactured. I don't manufacture ourselves. We have a third party manufacturer that make the product. But, I still am responsible for the sourcing of our raw materials and cardboard and things like this. And one of our other very awful COVID failures was when we did our very first batch. We had manufacturing problems anyway, because that just happens when you scale. It was our very first big production. And when everything was packaged, it was sent on the pallets. We had some boxes arrive at the office and we're kind of high-fiving, like, this is so exciting. We finally got a product to launch. And about 15 minutes later, I got a call from the warehouse saying, Charlotte, I'm so sorry, but every single pallet is damaged. Like 8 pallets of stock. And my heart just like, it fell in my stomach. And I was like, send me pictures. And basically all of the pallets, all of the boxes had collapsed. And during COVID, because everyone was remotely working in the company that we bought the cardboard from, nobody checked the orientation of the cardboard, and it wasn't in the right orientation for strength. So it all just collapsed. So that was like my first introduction into manufacturing failures. And there's been quite a few since that have absolutely not been fun to live through.
Such a big scale as well, isn't it? And it's like, oh my goodness. I remember you telling me a story about one box had arrived or a pallet had arrived and the packet was open at one end or something. It hadn't been fully sealed.
This is definitely a moment when I thought, I think I'm hanging up my boots. I think I'm done now. I think there is no more catastrophes that I can live through. We actually had 50,000 bars that were not sealed properly. But to make it worse at the time, we'd had some stock taken from a factory down to our warehouse, and then the warehouse had to send stock up to me. And when my stock arrived for the office for sampling, I opened the first one and I just saw open chocolate bars. And then I thought, obviously that's not a good feeling. You're like, I hope this is isolated. Moved on to the next flavor, opened that box, and it was the same problem. Opened the next one, a different flavor, and it was the same one. And honestly, in that moment, I burst into tears, because we at that point had no money in the bank account. We had a big customer we needed to be paid by. It was hands down the worst time that we've lived through. I genuinely didn't think we'd make it through. Like, in the end, we came to a resolution with our factory, and they hand sealed 50,000 bars. The knock-on effect that had was absolutely monumental. We had no cash flow for nearly 2 or 3 months because we didn't have any stock to sell whilst the problem was being resolved, and we had to get that stock then back into circulation, and then we needed to be paid. And so it really affected that the entire year. It was
I bet. But then you still didn't throw in the towel and go and get a 9-to-5 job. You're still here bossing it as a founder and entrepreneur. Like, even the worst days are still worth it, aren't they?
Yeah, I had this conversation, weirdly, that you say that, with my husband yesterday about 9-to-5 jobs. And honestly, I think I must be maybe a little bit sadistic, because I'm just like, do you know what? That just sounds like such a better thing to go through than having to get a job and have a boss.
Yeah, because it's quite fun, isn't it? There's something very fun about being constantly thrown outside of your comfort zone, and constantly you have to be, light on your toes, agile, and work out what on earth are we going to do? I don't know. Google it. Let's see if chat knows. I don't know. And you just have to work it out. And there is a thrill to doing that. It feels awful. And the lows are so low, but the highs are so high when you fix the problem and you've come up with a solution and you've got through it and you succeeded, or the money goes into the bank or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, it's okay. Yeah. We're still in.
Well, that's exactly it. Like the highs are so high, and the weird thing is you get calibrated to them because the lows are often so bad. And it can be such a tiny win when someone like a buyer responds to an email like, woohoo, if that's a win. But I must say, actually, it's been the biggest phase of personal growth for me since starting the company. I think I have been out of my comfort zones maybe like 60% of the time I've been running the company so far. I think that's getting less, but even still, there's, as the company is changing and we're looking at obviously our new kind of product range and things like that, it just changes. It doesn't really get any easier. We're going to be looking at expanding our team, and that's going to mean I will need to develop better skills in people management and things like that. And so I'm eternally grateful for the torturous journey it's been so far, because I am definitely a better person for it. I'm braver. I know I've got just an absolutely silly amount of resilience that just keeps me going and makes me realize that you can get through most things. So that's the food industry for you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many of the founders that come on the show who have similar but different stories. And it all comes down to grit and resilience. And actually, I'm still here. I didn't think I would be, but I am still here. And it's, but it's because you all have a mission to do something bigger and better that is actually having a really positive effect on the world or the UK or, whatever particular section of the industry. And that I think is what brings people back and keeps them coming back.
Yeah, I think it's the only thing, actually. When I was at Bread and Jam and meeting all these amazing brands, and they're all just there to make the world a better place through food and drink. It's very, very rare that you'd come across somebody who's just really got a rubbish product that's not got benefits and it's just made with exceptionally rubbish ingredients. You just don't see that really in the challenger space. It's all there for improving people's nutrition or making things better where you can. I mean, I love to look at food systems now. I've been in the industry, and Japan are an amazing example of a whole country being able to turn their nation's health around. And it's something that would be incredible to see here in the UK, but it was a very top-down approach and bottom-up at the same time. It was very regulated what children could have at school, for example, for their school meals. Everything was you weren't allowed to have an outside third-party contractor making food in a school, for example. It was all governmental, but that meant that there was then control over healthy food and education going into the children as the next generation growing up in Japan. And I think with the product that we've got, we're not saving the world maybe with incredible gut health cereals or CBD drinks and things like that. But I think what we are doing is giving a stepway product into something better and changing a system that is so culturally ingrained in the UK to have chocolate and sweets. It just is part of our culture. Every Christmas, Easter, birthday, any chance for celebration or just watching TV on a Friday night after a long week, we love to treat ourselves. And so we're not going to get rid of it. And there's no point pretending that, from a purist point of view, that you could. I just think we need to have better options. They need to be lower sugar. The innovation needs to be there to make that happen, and then give customers a choice, give those consumers options, which is what we're going to do.
Amazing.
And we are doing.
Amazing. So where can we buy it from?
So we are in over 300 Holland and Barrett stores across the UK.
Lovely.
We are in so many independent health food shops as well. That's very common that people will still pick us up in their local health food store on the high street, where they are still thriving. We are online on our own website and Amazon. Yeah,
brilliant.
I think that's mostly where you'll find us.
Excellent. So we'll head to one of those. Head to your local health food store. Support the independents. Let's keep these stores in our high street.
Yes.
And That's absolutely amazing. Well, I'm a convert. I'm absolutely a convert. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Charlotte. It's absolutely whizzed by. I've just suddenly realised the time, but thank you so much.
Thanks, AJ. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Food Rebels, which is available on radio stations around the UK and further afield. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Audible. Please remember to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars or follow us. It makes such a difference, not just to our podcast and radio show, but it really helps to support the guests that come on the show with us. We're also on Instagram at food_rebels. So give us a follow, do get in touch. We love hearing from you and let us know what you think. Thanks so much for joining us and make sure you taste the rebellion.